Welcome to the Sort It Out SI League Guide for China, where we'll look at the league structure within Football Manager 2023 and have a look through a few save ideas if you want to start your game in China. Let's go take a look. On FM23, China has two playable divisions of 36 teams in total, and the domestic season runs across a calendar year, usually starting in around about March and ending towards the end of the year in December. There are also quite a few restrictions in the makeup of the squad and the matchday 11, especially in regards to foreign players and young players from China under the age of 21, which we'll cover in more detail later in the video. Okay, so the Chinese Super League is the top division with 18 teams, and whilst the schedule and structure in the real world is still feeling the effects of the pandemic, it's back to normal in Football Manager with a double round-robin schedule where you play every other team twice for a total of 34 games across the season. Now, the squad registration rules we're going to jump straight into because they're quite strict. There's a maximum squad size of 35, with a maximum limit of 6 foreign players that all have a wage limit on them individually and then a combined wage limit on the total foreign players within your squad. So that 35 maximum squad size must also include at least 3 under-21 Chinese players. There's also a bit of nuance around players from Hong Kong or Macau or Taiwan, so just be careful around that. I definitely recommend having a look at the rules page, let's put it that way, and that won't be the first time I say this, the last time rather that I say this in this video. Right, speaking of wage limits, there are maximum wages which are on screen, and they'll be different depending on which currency you're playing in, obviously, so I'm not going to go through them. But there are different wage limits for domestic players, a higher wage limit, as we've said, for foreign players to try and attract them into the league, and then also for under-21 players who haven't met certain thresholds for minutes played in various competitions. Again, they're on screen, you can find them on the rules page. Definitely familiarise yourself with the rules if this is your first time playing in China. They are nuanced, they are different. Obviously, there's wage caps and salary caps everywhere in different leagues as well, but they are different in China and apply to different groups of players. So have a look around, and I imagine it's going to be very easy to fall foul of some of these rules if you aren't familiar with them all. And there are also quite strict financial fair play rules. So as mentioned, there's a total salary cap for foreign players, and then there's certain expenditure across the season and financial loss restrictions and associated penalties, as well as, like, you could get points deductions basically if you spend too much money or lose too much money, and certain levels that the board and owners can put into the club to help basically meet the financial fair play, which is easy for me to say, rules within the league. Okay, back on the pitch where it's a little bit simpler. There obviously is a 34 game season, and once that is completed, there are up to 4 qualification places available for the AFC Champions League. Obviously, I think one of the cup winners also gets a place, and it mixes around like that. But basically, there are a total of 4 places for the Champions League for China at the start of the game. And it's quite simple that the bottom 3 just get relegated into the Chinese League 1, which is the second tier, and is also an 18-team, 34-game round-robin schedule, which sees again 3 up, obviously, to match the 3 coming down, and 3 down into the relegated into the unplayable third tier, which is League 2. Right, in terms of domestic cup competitions, I mentioned it earlier, there is the Chinese FA Cup, which is actually pretty straightforward. It's a single elimination knockout tournament that runs from August through to January. There's 32 teams in the first round, 32 teams in the second, and then from there it's just winner stays on. You go down to the final, which happens in January. Right, the main points of interest, however, in China are definitely those transfer and financial regulations, which we've covered at a high level, and I definitely have done it at a high level. I could have gone into more detail, but it's quite confusing. I definitely recommend studying the rules page yourself if it's your first time before you get going into a save. I could explain it and over again. I'm not sure I've got my head around it yet, so that's not going to help you. I've given you the high level, the bullet points. Go in and have a look if you're not sure. Make sure you try and follow them at least, because you'll get points deductions if not. The league and cup structures themselves, however, are pretty straightforward, and the season length is reasonably short, so once you've got your head around the regulations, the season should start to fly by. 34-game league season, plus a pretty short cup competition, and then obviously it depends whether you get into the AFC Champions League or not as to how many extra games you've got. But it should be quite a quick season to run through. But basically, who are you going to manage? That is the question. And don't worry, I've got 6 in this video. Save ideas for you covering both playable divisions. So let's have a look who makes my list. So we start out with the 2021 double winners, Shandong Taishan, who have won 4 Super League titles and 7 FA Cups throughout their history. Now, Shandong have a very healthy bank balance, one of the best in the league, very good facilities, but the one thing here that really stands out is their incredible youth recruitment. Now, one other thing, actually, that stands out as well, they have 34-year-old Marwan Fellaini as their key player, and you can see his wage, that is the cap for foreign players. But Shandong are well placed for the future. Obviously, with that youth recruitment, they're going to have some good players coming through. But their target has definitely got to be improving on their best performances in the AFC Champions League. They've never made it past the quarter-finals. Now, obviously, your first target is to get back to the top of the Super League. But once you've done that, the Champions League is where you need to focus. And they should have some really great young players coming through the ranks. So you might be able to turn them into the dominant force in China, because there's a bit of a vacuum because quite a few big clubs have basically dissolved over the pandemic era or got a little bit worse. But one thing that hasn't got worse is the next side, and that is Wuhan 3 Towns. Now, they are a very young club. They've only been in existence a few years, and they have very quickly risen up the ranks of Chinese football. Now, 3 Towns were in League One last season, and they won the league at a canter to get their first ever promotion to the Super League. The young club has basically been a bit of a revelation since joining the Super League for the 2022 season that's currently going on. They're sitting in first place and have done for every single match day apart from 2 this season. And that is, at the time of recording this video, they currently still sit top. They're level on points with second place Shandong, and there's 3 games left in the season. But this is a brand new team, a very new, recently promoted side. So this is pretty incredible, really, that they are that high up in the league. So basically, that is the blueprint of what you need to do as manager on FM23. You've got to take this side who've never played a minute of Super League football when you take them over and take them straight to the top of the Super League. The team's facilities, however, they've not met the level of their on-pitch performance. They're pretty naff. So you need to help build the club up off the pitch as well as on the pitch. But what better way to do that than win the league and secure Champions League football at the very, very earliest opportunity, and then you can make Wuhan 3 Towns the biggest club in China. Won't take long, I'm sure. So the next club are Guangzhou FC, and they're obviously the former Guangzhou Evergrande, who have been the dominant force in Chinese football over the last 10 years. Now, the side were purchased by Evergrande Real Estate Group in 2010, and then went on to win 7 straight and then 8 of the next 9 Super League titles. So basically from 2011 through to 2019, they won 8 of the 9 Super Leagues that were on offer. And they also won 2 FA Cups, and importantly, which is why they're on the list actually, they've won 2 AFC Champions Leagues as well. But a restructuring of the ownership and change of name during the pandemic has led to a bit of a slight downturn in form, so they're no longer the team to beat in China. But this does make them the perfect team for you to take over and return them to their glory that seems so long ago, but just 3 years ago. And the one thing that I mentioned about the Champions League, the Champions League has only been won by Chinese sides a total of 3 times, and Guangzhou have won them twice. So they're comfortably the most successful side in the country if you go by that metric. So take them over and make it 3. We've got just 3 clubs left, and the final Super League club that we're going to look at today is Beijing Guoan, who have won the most FA Cups in history with 5, as well as the 2009 Super League title. So they've got the pedigree, but they were pretty much the second best team throughout much of Guangzhou's dominance that we touched on a few seconds ago, but they could never quite topple them, and they weren't in the position to take the mantle once that spell of dominance ended. So they're sort of the nearly men of the Super League. They do have really solid finances and facilities, but it's their youth facilities that are making me call them out. They've got incredible youth facilities. That's what makes them stand out to me. They've got great potential, They've had potential over the years, but they've never quite matched it on the pitch. So they're going to have a bit of a youth movement coming through. So they're going to need a great manager to take them to the next step and get their second Super League title. And then maybe they can start challenging for the Champions League as well. Now, if we look further down the ladder, I want to highlight Kunshan from League One as my next save idea. They're another relatively new side. They've only existed for about 8 years. So they're pretty much in the same age as Wuhan Three Towns. If not a year older. But they've quickly risen up the leagues and find themselves in the second tier for the 2022 season. They've been in League One for 2 seasons, I believe, before this one. They've got good finances, but so far very little investment has gone into the facilities. So that's something you've got to kind of, help the club build. But the key reason I've chosen them is because I've looked at the League One table this season that's just finished. The 2022 League One season has just finished. They've lost 1 game. They've absolutely dominated their opponents. They've taken the league title by a country mile, and they've got their first promotion secured for the Super League for next season, the 2023 season. They'll be in the top flight. That seems like a pretty big target to me for any fledgling football managers out there who want to challenge themselves. And can you repeat it, basically? Can you repeat that performance and take them all the way to the top in the same way that Wuhan Three Towns have pretty much done as well? So the blueprint is there for Wuhan. Kunshan are on that same path. Can you make it 2 brand new sides in the Super League and a brilliant new force in Chinese football? So the final team on this list. Now, this is one of the toughest sides to manage on Football Manager. It's Beijing Institute of Technology. Now, this is the side basically from the university that performed well enough in college football and decided to go professional and got themselves into League One. But last season they were absolutely awful, and they were only sparred of relegation because clubs above them had folded, so there was a need for more teams, and they basically just got a League One place once again. It's kind of been similar performance this year in 2022. The squad is all young. There's only about 3 or 4 players who are over the age of 23, and they've got no budget, no finances, terrible facilities essentially. BIT are favourites to go down. And in the real season that's just finished, they won just 2 games out of 34, got 10 points, finished dead last, and they've gone. They've been relegated. Unless clubs above them once again fold and they somehow manage to save themselves, they won't be a playable league next season. So make sure you try it this season, and you've got a massive challenge on your hand. It's basically survive. Simply survive. If you can make it through season 1, you can try and do something else in season 2, but if you make it through that first season, it's going to be an absolutely mammoth challenge. They've already been essentially relegated. They've been relegated again. They've been back-to-back relegations from the same league. That's impressive in and of itself. But if you can somehow survive that, you can think about growing the club and getting them maybe into the Super League in about 400 years' time, because this side isn't one that's got a good basis for getting themselves promoted. So are you up to the challenge? That is the big question, the challenge of managing Beijing Institute of Technology. Right, and so there we have it. That was a bit of a whistle-stop tour of Chinese football on Football Manager 2023, alongside 6 great save ideas that I've curated for this video. If you're familiar with either the real-life Chinese leagues or you've managed in Football Manager in China quite a lot, head down to the comments, share your thoughts, make any corrections, because I'm bound to have made something wrong, particularly in pronunciations. And importantly, the most important thing is share your stories of managing in China on Football Manager. It doesn't have to be 2023, it could be any iteration of the game along the years. Right, whilst you're there, please remember to like the video, subscribe to the Sort It Out SI channel if you haven't already, and check out some more league games that are going to appear on this screen very, very shortly, and all of the other great content here on the channel. Thanks a lot for watching, and I will catch you on the next video.